heads up.
Oh no, well, it's just, I just thought I'd press it now.
Yeah.
While everyone's looking smiley.
Mm.
So, what we do?
We're looking at remote learning. Said from
Okay.
last time, Adrian thought it would be a good idea to think about that alongside
Okay.
well-being.
Okay. So, Mandy, are you chairing?
Well, since I don't have kids, I think it's a good idea because I'd really love to know how you guys are coping in lockdown with the online learning and work and all sorts.
Oh, yeah. Adrian?
Hoping.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's surviving, isn't it? I mean, it's full on. It's absolutely full on. Because I mean, I got used to both my kids started school in September. So I'd got used to having 5 days to do stuff, to do my business. But now I have to cram it into 2.5 days because partner and I have 2.5 days, he has 2.5 days. And that's tough because then it's like 8 hours, 10 hours on Zoom because I'm packing in my days. So the days that I am working is exhausting. And when I'm not working, I'm with the kids. And when I'm not with the kids, I'm working. And when I'm not working, and it's just, yeah. And it's not like you can break it up at the weekend by going out and letting loose. It's kind of sort of thing. How are you finding it, Adrian?
Yeah, very, very similar. I mean, it's a novelty for all of us to be in the same house all at the same time, because we've all, under normal circumstances, got lots of things going on that we all do in different ways and different guises. So it's been great from that perspective that we've collectively had more time together, and it's been really good and really meaningful. And I wouldn't change that part for the world. But as you outlined, Mel, it's really difficult when you're all shuffling around the same space and you've got work demands, you've got kid demands, the normal ones, and the fact of that, if your two are anything like mine, that's like, we're not at school, so things are different, and we know that you're a teacher, and we know that all these things, but actually, not in this house. You're not. You're dad. So don't come any of that teacher nonsense here. So that relationship boundaries is really, really difficult, and having to step from being a parent into being a teacher, and then back out of being a teacher into a parent, because when you're when you're in the classroom, shall we say, there's a fine line in that you know that you can't step across that line because they're not your kids. Well, these are my kids. So it's kind of that line where you don't push across kind of gets blurred sometimes, and that's been a massive learning curve from my point of view. And also the fact of that two of my three are primary age, so like I already had the utmost respect for primary teachers in the first place, but wow,
Yeah.
My youngest is about to turn 6, and it's the best thing in the world, and I love her to bits for it, but it is exhausting in that everything is a question. It's a question about everything. Like, wow, what is it like to be so inquisitive and but it is exhausting when you're trying to just constantly answer those questions, because I don't want her to lose that love of inquisitiveness and creativity, because I think it's phenomenal. And as I watched particularly my oldest daughter, she lost that, and it's school that took it out of her. But so I don't want them to lose that, and I love it, so I entertain it all the time. So we always go off on tangents about stuff, never end up doing all the stuff that we should do. But learning's learning, right? And
I think that's the thing.
If she develops that love of learning and wants to go off and find out about different things, I'm all for that, because I think we all hold a very similar view in that the curriculum is not the be all and end all of education.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting you said that about the about the line from classroom to teacher and parent, because I think I kind of feel it's the opposite, because I probably pushed more in the classroom because they were teenagers, and with my kids, when I do push a little bit, they're quite sensitive.
They push back.
No, it's not that they push back. They start crying, and I'm like, oh, kind of thing. Because I think, 20 years of being a secondary teacher and talking to teenagers and getting them to, come on, you can do this. You can't do that with a 4-year-old. So that's been a learning curve for me. So that the minute that they're bored or they've had enough, or they're showing me a bit of kind of thing. Whereas in the classroom, I'd be like, come on, need to get it done. At home, I'm like, okay, let's watch a film. I just switch to something else, and that's been a learning curve for me. Sorry, Mandy, I interrupted you.
That's all right. I think that's what I love about our conversations. It just flow.
Yeah.
I think that there's so much learning that can be taken from all that you've said. The blurred lines between home and school, between the roles that we play, teacher, parent, friend, listener, all these things get blurred because we're home all the time. The communication isn't always as easy as it can be, is what I'm learning from all this contact with people who I wouldn't normally have contact with because of the situation as it is. And it's interesting that you're saying that there's sometimes the children go off on a tangent. And when I think about early years, which is what I'm really passionate about, if the whole curriculum, from beginning to end was sort of framed around or loosely around what the earliest focus is. It's about that sort of personal, social, emotional development, that level of curiosity to learn and know what the world is about, to find new ways to communicate and all sorts. And to a great extent, the way the curriculum is framed sort of really does beat it out of children. Towards the end, it's all about exams and getting that certificate, etc., which I'm not saying there isn't a need for an outcome and shouldn't be one of the a focus, but I truly don't think it is the focus. Because when you think about leaving school and the things that you are now relying on, how much of it did you learn at school? How much of it did you learn at home? How much did you learn outside of home and school? And I think there's just a place for everything. But going back to the remote learning, I think that having had conversations with quite a few teachers and in the past couple of weeks, I can see the need for both the live lessons and the remote, paper type based stuff. Live lessons would be great if we had the infrastructure to back it up. If we had learned it before lockdown, there was, a bit of practice. I think what's really making everyone ache and pain is that we're learning this painfully in some circumstances. There was no practice run. This is just the real deal here. There was no chance to get it wrong and evaluate it in a comfortable type thing as a learning process. This was just has to be done now. And I think that that's just a big bit of learning about forward thinking that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, and that planning for things just in case, or maybe it's a new move we want to make. So yeah, there's something around that. Would it have been an easier something if we were prepared? There's something around that. And having to fit your family life around a circumstance like this, I don't know anybody that could have envisaged it being, as needed as it is now. We just thought it would have been a simpler move into it. I think the schools that are surviving and thriving to a great extent are those who had some sort of reliance on technology before this all went down. Because I've spoken to a few heads and there was nothing, absolutely nothing in place. And it had to be done at very short notice.
I have to say, my kids' school, in September, they sent us all the logins for Microsoft Teams, put some homework stuff on there, so we got used to using it as parents, that kind of thing. So when it did happen like that, we all had our logins. We knew, it was all there, kind of thing. And then it was right. They uploaded lots of stuff on there, and then eventually we got the live lessons about a week later, I think it was. So they were well prepared, but they thought well in advance that, okay, this is going to happen at some point. We need to be prepared. So that was great. But I have, like you say, I've heard of schools where I know one person that I know that I coach has gone into a school, suddenly been told you're in charge of remote learning. What's there already? Nothing. It's like, oh wow, kind of thing. Nothing. So it's like, what have you been doing the last year? It's yeah.
It's an interesting one. Before you do that, Adrian, just want to know a little more in terms. You said you were prepared for September, but I'm guessing it was a very different experience, March to July last year. Amal, just wondering.
Oh, March to July. Well, with us it was a bit different because we pulled our kids out in March, and we decided that we're not sending them in because we just thought there needs to be a lockdown, and there wasn't a lockdown, so we took them out early, and we didn't think it was safe for them or anybody else in the community. So, and because of that, we were homeschooling already, so we were doing the 2.5 days, and actually it was easier. And maybe it's because me and Tim, we're both teachers. He's maths and science, I'm humanities, and we found it a lot easier when we were just setting our own curriculum, creating stuff ourselves. Now we find it harder because of the live lessons. I think I was talking to a few friends of mine, we must be the only parents on the planet that are like annoyed we find the live lessons get in the way. Right? Because I mean, take Friday, I got up, went for a run, got the kids breakfast, got sorted out lunch for me and the other half because he was working, and then before I knew it, it was 3 o'clock. I was like, what? They'd had a couple of live lessons, and it was like, I haven't done anything with them. So it was like, yeah, so I kind of find it gets in the way a bit, but that's just, I know that's me, and I know that's us. We can be flexible, and it makes, I think we've got used to a flexible lifestyle. So having that inflexibility, we find that a bit difficult.
All right, thanks for that, Mal. What about you, Adrian? How's it been?
I'm going to start with a different tact, right? I want you to go back to 11 months ago, right? When lockdown first started, and it was the first week. Do you remember all the kind of memes that came out?
Yeah.
Everyone saying that, let's pay teachers £1 million a year because they deserve it. And there was a picture, there was one that makes me laugh still to this day. There's a picture of this old lady who's about 90, and it says, meet Susan, she's been homeschooled for a week, she's 30. That is what we're dealing with, right? So everybody thinks they can do what we do, but they can't, right? That's the reality. It's a very skilled profession, but if you go out there and you listen to the people who complain, who don't have very good experiences with education, and if you listen to, some of those people that should know better, government, they kind of tell us that we're not doing a very good job. We're doing a bloody amazing job.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody prepared us for this. We have to, as a profession, on the flip side, as a profession, we have to hold our hands up a little bit and say, you know what, we never kept up with the times, but now we're catching up with the times. So thinking about that, I was talking with the strategic IT lead for our multi-academy trust last week, and he says for every month that we've not been in school, we've basically, IT-wise, we've gone forward 1 year in our practice, right?
Wow.
So think about that, 11 months, that, I'm not a genius, but I think that's 11 years. But so that shows how far we are behind with the use of and the advance of technology. We've not been prepared, okay? We haven't been forward thinking in that respect. So we haven't been prepared for something like this to happen. We've relied quite heavily on old school methods of face-to-face teaching, and we already know that doesn't work for everybody. There's been a lot of talk out there about well-being of kids and them not seeing their friends and so on and so forth. But actually, for some kids, this has been amazing in the respect of that we couldn't get them to come into school. Right? So this provision has been an absolute lifesaver for them, literally, because it was making them ill having to come to school.
Yeah.
So, we have to think about all of those elements, number one. But also number two is that teachers, who's prepared to be able to deliver a live lesson? Where did you do that in your teaching school? Yeah. Where did you do that in your training? Did you do that in your teaching practice? Right. There's people who've been teaching for 25 years, never had to teach online. Right. So actually, I think we're doing an amazing job as a profession.
I think it's incredible.
And I need to, get out there and send a salute to all practitioners, because you do an amazing job every day. Right. So these people who are sending in, messages, having a go because this isn't up to scratch or that's not up to scratch. We're learning on the go, people. It's not something that we were trained to do. So people are doing it as we go. But I will stand by the fact of that actually it's been probably an eye-opener for all of us, in that we need to think more progressively, think about how we can embrace the technology now, because there's no going back. We can't just go, oh, well, we're all going to come back into school and we'll just go back to doing what we did in 2020 or in 2019. We can't do that. We've got to push on and move forward. And I have no doubt as a profession, we will do that, because that's what we do. Thinking, again, going off on a tangent, but thinking of the 20 years that I've been in education and where we started. When I first started in 2000, in terms of you turned up, you delivered your lesson, you kind of threw down some abstract grades, and that was it. Well, look how far we've come now with research and development and action research projects, and looking at the theory and training and development needs from that, the coaching element into coaching people into being leaders, and developing the strategy to be able to drive things forward. Massive. So I've got no doubt that we can do that. And I think, we have to give ourselves a big pat on the back. So all you teachers out there, well done.
Yeah. Well said, Adrian, because it's incredible that on the Monday they went into school just as normal. And then on Monday night, it was like, oh, we need to sort out, it's like saying Ofsted's in the rest of the week, rest of the month, and it's incredible how teachers and schools have turned it around in such a short amount of time. It's impressive. They're exhausted. They're exhausted, absolutely exhausted and stressed and all that, but what they're producing is incredible.
But that is the other flip side of it, isn't it? Because you've got some people who are in school because they're working with key worker kids and they're there, and then they've got to go after they finish that and worked with those kids and marked and assessed those kids' work. Then they have to go home and then they have to plan their live lessons or their lessons to be put onto whatever platform is being used. Then they have to mark that. That's all completely a new and different way of doing it. And seeing some of the innovation out there is brilliant. I've seen somebody, I can't remember who it was, and there's probably lots of people doing this, but I thought this was absolutely brilliant. Just creating an online document, which was a PowerPoint, where it's a slide where every kid has got their own slide so they could watch the kids work in real time.
Oh, wow.
Or real adaptation and innovation. It's not a genius idea, but it's actually something that we weren't doing before.
Yeah.
Indeed. And other businesses were, other fields, sorry to interrupt, were doing that. That's a real powerful point there.
And I think, we've got to embrace more of that, but there's so much learning that's going on during this whole process that it's unfair to judge people at the moment.
I think a lot more time is needed before that can be done. But even before you go there, Mal, I'm wondering what you're thinking about a balance, because I can absolutely hear that for you, Mal, you'd love just to do your own thing because you're skilled, you're qualified to do your own thing. But how many parents out there can do their own thing and have that skill and have that knowledge and have that want or the space? Because you've got parents working full time at home trying to homeschool at the same time, and it's vice versa for teachers who are parents at home trying to do live lessons you know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to consider there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, like I say, Tim and I are in a fortunate position. We've cultivated this life over the last 4 or 5 years, so that we can be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a fortunate position where last year we were like, right, we're taking them out of school, we'll homeschool them, you know. And on the Monday they were supposed to go back to school in January. We were like, no, they're not. We'll keep them home. But again, we were in that position where we could, you know. So, but not everyone can. Not everyone has that choice.
Not at all. But I can see the benefits of the live lessons in terms of keeping children connected to each other.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm wondering if there could be some sort of system that particular schools, individual schools can put in place, whereby once a week, twice a week, every other day, there's that 30 minutes contact. One suggestion someone gave me last week, which I thought was fantastic. First thing in the day, you meet for 30 minutes, you do the register, you have a conversation, you sing a song, whatever it is, and then you set your lessons, you come back at the end of the day to sort of close the day. I thought that was an amazing suggestion,
That's
you know,
nice.
that schools can think about. So you have those two sets of contact and then a bit of fluidity in the middle. And I guess it's about thinking differently about it, not being able, you have to do live lessons, or you can only do, you know, other lessons that are recorded. Can there not be a balance?
I mean, that's the thing. Last Friday, I mean, because my eldest, he's 8, year 3, he has this well-being half an hour every Friday. And usually the teacher just chats to them about how you're getting on this week, what have you, you know, this, that, and the other. But this week was lovely because we're like, right, let's get some Lego and let's make something and show it to each other. And that was so lovely. Both my boys got into that and like, way, just went off, and they were all showing each other, and it felt like you were in the classroom. It was great. And I think the boys felt like they were with their friends and doing something, showing each other, and that sort of thing. God, that was brilliant for their well-being. It was just a simple thing. Just go and get some Lego, make something. You know,
but it's the equipment that goes with that. It's almost like you need a go bag, pencils, paper, markers, you know, a few stones, some sand. Sessions can take place off the hook if needed, because that's what the children would need. What do you think, Adrian?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we try to, my wife and I, we try to follow the school curriculum as much as we can. But I'm going to provide a caveat to that. So if you're listening, guys, I'm really sorry. Right? You know, I know a lot more than the average parent. So you know, we work around things and we adapt stuff to make sure that it's fun for the kids, because what I don't want them to be is like, oh, we're working homeschool with dad and we're cracking the whip. Don't get me wrong, it's not all fun and games, but we try to incorporate some other things into there. So you know, we'll have some playtime in the garden, or we'll go out and we'll ride our bikes, and you know, we'll go to the park and they'll play for a little bit, and then we'll take one of the activities, for example, maybe an art activity, and we'll transform it a little bit, and we'll use outside things to be the materials that we're going to use. So for example, the kids, my middle daughter, she's also in year 3, and they were doing something on natural disasters, and it was when the snow was here, that you wouldn't know about, Mel.
No. No, not in Bournemouth.
No. So she got one of her Barbie dolls and she created an avalanche.
Oh wow!
Like literally, and just put a Barbie doll underneath a whole heap of snow. And I thought that was brilliant, and it was great.
Was Barbie okay?
I think
Did she survive?
She's a little bit traumatized, but she's all right. You said everybody, no dolls are harmed in the making of that.
I'm sure we you know, it was left in capable hands.
Yeah. there probably would have been if it had been up to me, to be fair. But yeah, you know, Carmen did a great job. So, you know, it's about being creative and seeing those opportunities to develop more than just what is on the curriculum. You alluded to earlier, Mandy, with this whole early years curriculum and the investigation and inquisitiveness and curiosity. I feel that we at times we beat that out of kids as we go through the curriculum, as we go through the school and go through the different key stages. So it's great just to be able to just do that and say, right, we're going to do that. My eldest daughter, during this lockdown and the last one, she's found a love of cooking. She likes to cook. You know, we wouldn't have found that out otherwise, you know, if we had lockdown. But she likes to cook, so you know, brilliant. She got a new string to her bow. It means I don't have to cook a couple of times a week. So,
it's a double bonus.
So yeah, it's great, you know. But I think one of the challenges that this whole online learning presents, and it particularly presents with my girls, and I'm not saying that they're smarter than anyone else's, but they're pretty good at trying to just race through their work. So they will do just enough. Now, the question that I have is that, you know, I'm not primary trained, but I know enough to make sure that they're doing the right things. But I wonder how many kids are out there who are getting hoodwinked by how many parents, are out there getting hoodwinked by their kids, whose kids are just going, look, Mum, Dad, I've done this. I've done it. Look, all my work's done. I've completed it. But it's not to the best of their ability. And I think that's the next challenge that we've got to overcome on remote learning, making sure that the kids are doing what they should be doing to the best of their ability. And how do we feed that back in a way that isn't overloading in terms of workload?
That's a really good point. I think parents could do with samples of what children were doing prior to all of this starting off, and what they could possibly, you know, be moving to, and that would be really beneficial for them to see, well, actually, little this or little that could be working at a different level if they would just put a bit more effort. In the conversations I've had, quite a lot of teachers have made that point about how do we check that this child is pushing themselves, or that parents are really aware of what children could be doing. And I wonder if that leaves an opportunity for a bit more shared practice across schools, between schools, local authorities, etc. And I know there's a lot going on online with persons sharing, you know, strategies that they're using. And I know it will not work in all contexts, but it presents an opportunity for persons to link more, to say, well, this is what we've trialed at X school, and this is what we found, you know, and seeing how they can find a way through, because parents could do, I think, with a bit of sampling of what particular pieces of work could look like, so that they have an understanding that if my child is working at this sort of, in this sort of area, then that's all right. You know, they well done for doing it. This is what the next step could look like, and that is what the next step could look like. But again, we're prepared to do this on such short notice. So Mal, tell me, what about you? For you, do you think you're pushing your kids enough or too much?
No. I think it's definitely, no, I'm not pushing them, because I want them to love learning. I'm not pushing them like I would have done as a secondary school teacher. I want them to enjoy. I don't want them to feel forced into doing anything. And because the minute you're forced, you don't want to do it. They're a bit like me. If anyone forces me to, you know, I'm not doing it kind of thing. So I want them to enjoy it. And I don't mind tangents. Like Adrian said, I think tangents are great, because then you get to find what they're interested in, and encouraging them to ask questions. Yeah, I think I don't push them enough. I do say, and something I used to say in the classroom when kids used to come up to me and say, Miss, I've finished, look. And I'll say, are you proud of it? You know, and they're like, and I'm like, come back to me when you're proud of it. And I think that's a gentle way of saying it's not good enough without saying it's not good. I think if you say, well, that's not good enough, go and do it again, they'll get their back up and not do anything. Whereas you say, well, is it good enough for you? You know, are you proud of it? And I think that's important, that instilling pride in their work. I think that's really important, and that's a gentle way of doing it. What do you think, Adrian?
I completely agree with you, Matt. I love that because, you know, language and words are very powerful. And, you know, if we tell them that's not good enough, then that sets a barrier up already. So like you, I try to put the onus back on my three. So the eldest one, you know, she probably doesn't give herself enough credit. You know, she's pretty good at most things. She knows enough about stuff, but she doesn't believe enough in herself. So we work on that. My middle daughter, she's she's probably the most capable, but doesn't want to go outside of her comfort zone. She's good. She's good enough to do just enough, and it to be better than most. And she likes to just coast, right? So, you know, we have to take a different tact with her and often use that exact same one. Is this your best presentation? You know, are you proud of this work? And kind of do that. And then if that fails, you know, just because of her personality type, she's quite a lot like me. So I know how to push her buttons and kind of just have to get into just making a bit of a competition. And she comes to life. The youngest one, she's a beast when it comes to just doing. She just sits down, she just gets on with it, and she cracks it out. No encouragement needed or whatever. She's really good at that. But again, she's like the eldest one in that she needs some reassurance. So it's just making sure that we do that. Do we push them to complete all of their work? You know, no, because there's more to life. You know, I know.
I was like that in the classroom. It wasn't about finishing. It was about doing what you do properly and to the best of your ability.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. You know, this is another topic for another day, but because I could talk about it for hours. But you know, people keep talking about all this lost learning. What are they talking about?
Yeah.
What seriously? What are they talking about? Lost learning? Lost from who? Lost when? You know, and kids are falling behind. Behind what? Some notion of expectation that's plucked out of thin air and placed down as a marker that at this age you should be doing this. Who says? Because all of us out here now know that we don't learn linear. We learn at different rates. Sometimes you learn things really quickly. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. So that's all rubbish, if you ask me. So, you know, I think it's about making sure, like you started out saying, Mel, in that you need to make sure that your kids enjoy learning. They have, you know, they want to ask questions, they're inquisitive, because in education, we say we want inquisitive children, we want curiosity, we want them to be intellectual, we want them to go deeper into things. But yet, what does our curriculum look like? It doesn't give them the opportunity.
That's really brilliant how you've summarized that, Adrian. So we've learned quite a bit today in terms of our thinking behind online learning, remote learning, what could work for one group, one family, one setting, probably wouldn't work in another. And that's because all families, all settings are different. Some, you know, may have two parents, may have two persons, two carers within a home to support, or more, depending on the type of, you know, your living circumstance. And some may not. How many children have access to the actual things that they need? Not just the physical computer or laptop or whatever device, iPad, etc. But who actually has the actual things, the pencils, papers, stones, glue, to make that learning exciting and interactive? And yes, there are lots of apps on, but the tangible things always work well. And also in terms of the parental conversations that would happen around learning, are all parents ready to have the conversations that teachers would be having? Are they skilled enough, etc.? So lots to think about there. And then you talk about the lost learning. And for me, that's around what education is for. What do we think education is for? And I think some persons do believe that education is just for work. It's just for the next step. It's not about the now. It's not about the development of the individual to be the best that they can be and contribute to the world, you know. And that's, like you say, a subject for another day, because I think learning is linked to sustainability. You know, sustainability of us as a race, and, you know, living in a world with finite resources, etc. But so maybe that's something we can think about for next time, and persons out there can think about for next time. What is education for? What do you truly believe education is for? And as someone recently said in that course that we're doing with the BLA, is it about learning or is it about passing on knowledge? So yeah, something interesting to think about for next time. So hope you've enjoyed our conversation, everybody. And see you next time, where we'll be talking a lot more about what education is for. Bye-bye.
Bye.